puppets. She's gonna be like,
Hey, Edward, are you so excited that we're on chapter 20?
I guess. It seems like not a whole lot's happened.
What do you mean? We're already having crazy stuff going on and we left on a cliffhanger.
And we're on page 390, when this whole book could have been 200 pages. I can't read with these on my hands. No, I'll take them off. Alright, we are here for chapter 20, which is titled Impatience. Agreed. Impatience. When I woke up, I was confused. My thoughts were hazy, still twisted up in dreams and nightmares. It took me longer than it should have to realize where I was. This room was too bland to belong anywhere but in a hotel. The bedside lamps bolted to the tables were a dead giveaway, as were the long drapes made from the same fabric as the bedspread, and the generic watercolored prints on the walls. Stephanie Meyer's got beef.
Nothing is good enough for Bella. I swear to God. She's in, like, probably a 5-star hotel and, like, oh, it's so bland.
I tried to remember how I got here, but nothing came at first. I don't understand. Why does she have amnesia?
It's, like, a thing, I guess, for, like, writers who just, I guess, don't sleep.
Well, I don't, like, it doesn't make any sense.
Up and they have amnesia for the first 5 minutes.
Like, reading the last page, like, nothing happened. She just ran off with Emmett.
Well, she went to bed, I guess.
Okay. I did remember the sleek black car. The glass in the windows darker than that on a limousine. The engine was almost silent, though we'd raced across the black freeways at more than twice the legal speed, because vampires aren't bound by law. And I remembered,
pulled them over.
and I remembered Alice sitting with me on the dark leather back seat. Somehow, during the long night, my head had ended up against her granite neck. My closeness didn't seem to bother her at all, and her cool, hard skin was oddly comforting to me.
Are they also, like, hard? Do they have rigor mortis?
They're just statues, I guess. I don't know. But Bella's turning lesbian right before us.
Yeah.
The front of her thin cotton shirt was cold, damp with the tears that streamed across my eyes, until, red and sore, my eyes ran dry. Sleep had evaded me. My aching eyes strained open even though the night finally ended and dawn broke over, a low peak somewhere in California. The gray light streaking across the cloudless sky stung my eyes, but I couldn't close them. When I did, the images that flashed were all too vivid. Like still slides behind my lids were unbearable. Charlie's broken expression, Edward's brutal snarled teeth bared, Rosalie's resentful glare, the keen-eyed scrutiny of the tracker, the dead look in Edward's eyes after he kissed me for the last time.
It's not the last time.
I couldn't stand to see them, so I fought against my weariness and the sun rose higher. I was still awake when we came through a shallow mountain pass, and the sun behind us now, reflected off the tiled rooftops of the Valley of the Sun.
Okay, so I guess she hasn't slept, so I have no idea why she hasn't amnesia.
So much sun. Shut up about the sun. I didn't have enough emotion left to be surprised that we made it.
She probably couldn't go to fucking bed because they're all glittering like disco
That's
balls.
true. She's just constantly being blinded by vampires in all directions. We made a 3-day journey in 1 day. I stared blankly at the wide, flat... Like, cars aren't planes. They're not... Like, come on. It's gonna hit a max speed.
She's never been in a car.
I stared blankly at the wide, flat expanse laid out in front of me. Phoenix. The palm trees, the scrubby creosote, the haphazard lines of the intersecting freeways, the green swaths of golf courses, and turquoise splotches of swimming pools.
You would think now that we're back she'd be happy, but
No,
you'd be
she's still
wrong.
upset. All submerged in a thin smog and embraced by the short, rocky ridges that weren't really big enough to be called mountains. The shadows of the palm trees slanted across the freeway, defined, sharper than I remembered, paler than they should be. Nothing could hide in these shadows. The bright, open freeway seemed benign, but I felt no relief, no sense of homecoming. Yeah, 'cause you're bitching about everything.
Yeah, like, suddenly nothing's good enough for you.
Which way to the airport, Bella? Jasper had asked. I forgot he's supposed to. Which way to the airport, Bella? Because it's Jasper and he has the southern accent.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And I flinched, though his voice was quite soft
Him
and
Jacob are gonna be
unalarming.
best friends.
They are. Even though it's like, Jacob, why do you have this accent? I don't know. I've been in Oregon all my life. It was the first sound, besides the purr of a car, to break the long night's silence.
I feel like people trust me more when I talk like this.
I adopted this accent to gain women's trust. Stay on the I-10, I'd answered automatically. We'll pass right by it. My brain had worked slowly through the fog of sleep deprivation. Are we flying somewhere? I asked Alice. No, but it's better to be close, just in case. I remembered beginning the loop around Sky Harbor International, but not ending it. I suppose that must have been where I'd fallen asleep. Though now I'd chased the memories down, I did have a vague impression of leaving the car. The sun was just falling behind the horizon, my arm draped over Alice's shoulder and her arm firmly around my waist, dragging me along as I stumbled through the warm, dry shadows. I had no memory of this room. I looked at the digital clock in the nightstand.
You were asleep when you came into it, you spaz.
The red numbers chimed that it was only 3 o'clock, but they gave no indication whether it was night or day. This just sounds like my first apartment life. Like, no edge of light escaped the thick curtains, but the room was bright with the light of the lamps. I have no idea if it's night or day. I have no memory of this room, though I live here.
I gotta go forage for onions.
I rose stiffly and staggered to the window, pulling back the drapes. It was dark outside. 3 in the morning, then. My room looked out on a deserted section of the freeway, and the new long-term parking garage for the airport.
It's 3 in the morning?
Because it's dark outside.
It could be night.
Well, it's not going to be night at 3 in the afternoon.
What?
It's either going to be 3 a.m. or
She
3
said there's
p.m.
no clocks.
No, she said it was 3 a.m., but it didn't indicate, yeah. I was laughing too much in my nostalgia to maybe hear that. I looked down at myself. I was still wearing Esme's clothes, and they didn't fit very well at all. I looked around the room, glad when I discovered my duffel bag was on top of the low dresser. I was on my way to find new clothes when a light tap on the door made me jump. "Can I come in?" Alice asked. I took a deep breath.
No.
Sure. She walked in and looked at me overly cautiously. "You look like you could sleep longer," she said. I just shook my head. She drifted silently to the curtains and closed them securely before turning back to me. "We'll need to stay inside," she told me. "Okay." My voice was hoarse. It cracked. "Thirsty?" she asked. I shrugged. "I'm okay. How about you?" "Not for water, Alice." "Nothing unimaginable. Unmanageable," she smiled. "I ordered some food for you. It's in the front room. Edward reminded me that you have to eat a lot more frequently than we do." I was instantly more alert. "He called?" "No," she said, and watched my face fill. It was before we left. She took my hand carefully and led me through the door into the living room of the hotel suite. Yeah, they don't just forget.
They've all been human.
They've all also watched humans every day in the fucking lunchroom at the high school.
They pretend to eat, and like, you just are around humans.
I could hear a low buzz of voices coming from the TV. Jasper sat motionlessly at the desk in the corner, his eyes watching the news with no glimmer of interest. Jasper's just fading out.
Jasper's just disassociating to the news.
I sat on the floor. What if he was just watching static?
Remembering his Confederate days.
I miss the Confederacy.
The South will rise again.
Jasper's just, "The South will rise again, Alice." She's like, "I've told you, you have to stop saying that. I've been saying it for 100 years to stop fucking saying that."
It's like, it's not going to happen.
I'm a vampire and I rose again. I sat on the floor next to the coffee table where a tray of food waited, and began picking at it without noticing what I was eating. Alice perched on the arm of the sofa and stared blankly at the TV like Jasper. Can you guys not?
It's just what they do.
I ate slowly, watching her, turning now and then to glance quickly at Jasper. It began to dawn on me that they were too still. They never looked away from the screen, even though commercials were playing. I pushed the tray away, my stomach abruptly uneasy. Alice looked down at me. "What's wrong, Alice?" I asked. "Nothing's wrong." Her eyes were wide, honest, and I didn't trust them. "What do we do now?" "We wait for Carlisle to call." "And should he have called by now?" I could see that it was near the mark. Alice's eyes flitted from mine to the phone on top of her leather bag and back. "What does that mean?" My voice quivered, and I fought to control it. "That he hasn't called yet." It just means that they don't have anything to tell us. But her voice was too even, and the air was harder to breathe. Jasper was suddenly beside Alice, closer to me than usual. Bella, he said in a suspiciously soothing voice, you have nothing to worry about. You are completely safe here. I know that.
I don't believe you.
Then why are you frightened? He asked, confused. He might feel the tenor of my emotions, but he couldn't read the reasons behind them. You heard what Lawrence said. My voice was just a whisper, but I was sure they could hear me. He said James was lethal. What if something goes wrong and they get separated? If something happens to any of them? Carlisle, Emmett, Edward, I gulped. If that wild female hurts Esme... So fuck Rosalie. My voice had grown higher, a note of hysteria beginning to rise in it. How can I live with it myself, knowing it's all my fault? None of you should be risking yourselves for me.
That's
Bella.
what they've literally been saying the whole
Bella.
time.
Stop, Jasper interrupted. His words pouring out so quickly they were hard to understand. You're worrying about things all wrong. Bella, trust me on this. None of us are in jeopardy. You are under too much strain as it is. Don't add to it with wholly unnecessary worries. Listen to me, he ordered, for I had to look away. Our family is strong. Our only fear is losing you.
Strong as the South.
Bella, the South will rise again. She's like, Jasper, I don't know what that means. But why should you? Alice interrupted this time, touching my cheek with her cold fingers. It's been almost a century that Edward's been alone. Now he's found you. You can't see the changes that we've seen. We, who have been with him so long. Do you think any of us want to look into his eyes for the next 100 years if he loses you? Bella, you have to survive because none of us want to deal with that.
You've seen how emo he can be.
It is unbearable. My guilt slowly subsided as I looked into her dark eyes. But even as the calm spread over me, I knew I couldn't trust my feelings with Jasper there. It was a very long day. We stayed in the room. Alice called down to the front desk and asked them to ignore our maid service for now. You just put the sign up, Alice. Calm down.
Yeah.
The windows stayed shut, the TV on,
It's
though no
also
one watched
3
it.
a.m. They're not coming for like another 6 hours.
They called down in the middle of the night, hey, we don't need room service. And they're like, that's great, because you ain't getting it. That's a me on the desk. At regular intervals, food was delivered to me. The silver phone resting on Alice's bag seemed to grow bigger as the hours passed. My babysitters handled the suspense better than I did. As I fidgeted and paced, they simply grew more still. Two statues whose eyes followed me imperceptibly as I moved around.
And she's like reading this as them being worried, but they could just be bored.
They're just chilling. Like, vampires probably don't sit this still for this long.
Yeah.
Sometimes I stared at the abstract prints, randomly finding pictures in the shapes on the wall, like I'd found pictures in the clouds as a child. Just watch TV, Bella.
TV with Alice and Jasper.
Or take a fucking nap. I traced a blue hand, a woman combing her hair, a cat stretching, but when the pale red circle became a staring eye, I had to look away. As the afternoon wore on, I went to bed, simply for something to do. I hoped that by myself in the dark I could give in to the terrible fears that hovered on the edge of my consciousness, unable to break through under Jasper's careful supervision. Jasper and Alice could, like, run to a Walmart and, like, buy Bella a fucking Game Boy or something.
She's like always on the verge of some like mental collapse.
Yeah, like
she probably needs some form of medication.
like, just go buy her a toy. But Alice followed me casually, as if by some coincidence she had grown tired of the front room at the same time. I was beginning to wonder what sort of instructions Edward had given her.
To probably not leave you alone.
To not
because
sleep
you're
with
an
you.
idiot.
To specifically not sleep with you, Bella. I ignored her at first, suddenly tired enough to sleep. But after a few minutes, the panic that held off of Jasper's presence began to make itself known.
Hey Alice, how bored are you?
I gave up on the idea of sleep quickly then, curling into a small ball, wrapping my arms around my legs.
Wrapping my anus around my arm.
Alice, I asked. Yes. I kept my voice very calm. What do you think they're doing right now? I swear to God, Bella. Oh,
Yikes!
is it okay?
Yeah, it's a wine bottle.
Okay.
It's fine.
It didn't break open, did it?
No.
Okay. I kept my voice very calm. What do you think they're doing right now? Carlisle wanted to lead the tracker as far north as possible.
Probably running for their lives.
Well, wait for him to get close, and then they're going to turn and ambush him. Esme and Rosalie were supposed to head west as long as they could to keep the female behind them. Can you bring me that ginger beer? My throat's getting dry. So I imagine things are going well if they didn't call. It means the tracker is close enough that they didn't want him to overhear. What about Esme? I think she must be back in Forks. She won't call if there's any chance the female will overhear. I expect they're all just being very careful. Do you think they're safe, though? Bella, how many times do we have to tell you that there's no danger to us? But would you even tell me the truth? Yes, I will always tell you the truth. I deliberated for a moment and decided that she meant it. Tell me then, how do you become a vampire? I'm about to skip some fucking pages if we go into this.
You just get bit, Bella. Like, what the fuck? Didn't you Google this?
My question caught her off guard. She was quiet. I rolled over to look at her and her expression seemed ambivalent. Edward doesn't want me to tell you that, she said firmly, but I sensed she didn't agree. That's not fair. I think I have a right to know. I know. I looked at her, waiting.
Why do you have a right to know?
He'll be extremely angry. It's none of his business. This is between you and me. Alice, you know, as a friend, I'm begging you.
Manipulative bitch.
It worked on Jacob, it'll work on Alice. And we were friends now, somehow. She must have known that we would get along. She looked at me with her splendid wise eyes. I'll tell you the mechanics of it, but I don't remember it myself, and I've never done it or seen it done. So keep in mind, I can only tell you the theory. I waited. As predators, we have a glute of weapons in our physical arsenal. A glute of weapons. Huh. Much, much more than really necessary. We have butts of weapons. The strength, the speed, is like we have a buttload of weapons. The strength, the speed, the acute senses, not to mention those of us like Edward, Jasper, and I, who have extra senses as well. And then, like a carnivorous flower, we are physically attractive to our prey.
Alice, you are too much.
I was very still, remembering how pointedly Edward had demonstrated the same concept of me for me in the meadow. Yeah, but hers is much better. It's as if you could stop me. She just starts tearing apart the hotel
like
room.
Of a Perona ass. She's like, and we're obviously going.
And she's just like shaking her ass seductively.
Yeah.
She smiled a wide smile. We have another fairly superfluous weapon. We're also venomous, she said, her teeth glistening. The venom doesn't kill, it's merely incapacitating. It works slowly, spreading through the bloodstream, so that once bitten, our prey is in too much pain to stop us.
Like giving Bella's shoulders a massage.
Yeah, I was thinking of her like cat crawling across the bed towards her. So just any form of like unacceptable.
Yeah.
Mostly superfluous.
Like, wow, in front of my salad.
Jasper's watching TV, he doesn't notice. Mostly superfluous, as I said. If we're that close, the prey doesn't escape. Of course, there are always exceptions. Carlisle, for example. So, if the venom is left to spread, I murmured, it takes a few days for the transformation to be complete, depending on how much venom is in the bloodstream, how close the venom enters the heart. As long as the heart keeps beating, the poison will keep spreading, healing, changing the body as it moves through it. Eventually the heart stops, and the conversion is finished. But all that time, every minute of it, a victim would be wishing for death. I shivered. It's not pleasant, you see. Edward said that it was very hard to do. I don't quite understand.
Would you call that frothy?
That looks good. We're also like sharks in a way. Once we taste the blood, or even smell it for that matter, it becomes very hard to keep from feeding. Sometimes impossible. So you see, to actually bite someone, to taste the blood, it would begin the frenzy. It's difficult on both sides, Bella. The bloodlust on one hand, the awful pain on the other. Why do you think you don't remember it happening? Like, switching from Alice's seductive voice, which I'm sure is not supposed to be the case.
Yeah.
Why do you think you don't remember it? Bella asked. I don't know. For everyone else...
I'm straight by.
She just, like, gently pushes Alice back a little bit. I don't know. For everyone else, the pain of transformation is the sharpest memory they have of their human life. But I remember nothing of being human.
I'm thinking she was just born a vampire.
We lay silently, wrapped in our individual meditations. The seconds ticked by and I'd almost forgotten her presence. I was so enveloped in my own thoughts.
You ever just forget you're having a conversation?
By, like, somebody trying to seduce you? Then, without any warning, Alice leapt from the bed. That's not what I thought was going to happen. Alice leapt from the bed, landing lightly on her feet. Her head jerked up. That's exactly what I thought. My head jerked up as I stared at her, startled. Something's changed. Her voice was urgent, and she wasn't talking to me anymore. She reached the door at the same time Jasper did. He had obviously heard our conversation. In her sudden exclamation, he put his hands on her shoulders and guided her back to the bed, sitting her on the edge. What do you see? What do you see? I was thinking Hannibal. What do you see, Will? He asked intently, staring into her eyes. Her eyes were focused on something very far away. I sat close to her, leaning in to catch her low, quick voice. I see a room. It's long and there are mirrors everywhere. The floor is wooden. He's in the room. He's waiting. There's gold. A gold stripe across the mirrors. Where is the room? I don't know. Something is missing. Another decision hasn't been made yet. How much time? It's soon. He'll be in the mirror room today or maybe tomorrow. It all depends. He's waiting for something, and he's in the dark now. Jasper's voice was calm, methodical as he questioned her. What is he doing? He's watching TV. No, he's running a VCR in the dark, in another place. Can you see where he is? No, it's too dark. And the mirror room, what else it got in there? Just the mirrors, and the gold. It's a band around the room. And there's a black table with a big stereo and a TV. He's touching the VCR there, but he doesn't watch the way he does in the dark room. This is the room where he waits. Her eyes drifted, then focused on Jasper's face. There's nothing else? She shook her head, and they looked at each other. What does it mean? I asked.
It means he's taking your home videos and he's gonna lurk with them because you're stupid.
Like, the fact that they didn't show this in the movie made them realize, like, oh, it's stupid that she doesn't understand what's going on later.
Yeah.
Neither of them answered for a moment, then Jasper looked at me. It means the tracker's plans have changed. He's made a decision that'll lead him into the mirror room, and then the dark room. But we don't know what those rooms are. No.
We don't know what that is.
But we do
know
But we do know that he won't be in the mountains north of Washington being hunted. He's eluded them. Alice's voice was bleak. Should we call? I asked. They traded a serious look, and then the phone rang. Alice was across the room before I could lift my head to even look at it. She pushed a button and held the phone to her ear, but she didn't speak first. Carlisle, she breathed. She didn't seem surprised or relieved the way I had felt. Yes, she said, glancing at me. She listened for a long moment. I just saw him. Whatever made him get on that plane, it was leading into those rooms. She paused. Yes, Alice said into the phone, and then she spoke to me. Bella. She held the phone out towards me, and I ran to it. Hello, I breathed. Bella, Edward said. Oh, Edward, I was so worried. Bella, he sighed in frustration. I told you not to worry.
She's gonna though.
But it was so unbelievably good to hear his voice. I felt the hovering cloud of despair lighten and drift back as he spoke. Where are you? We're outside of Vancouver, Bella. I'm sorry, we lost him. What?
This is vegetable oil.
Yeah, it's vegetable oil. He seems suspicious of us. He's careful not to stay just far enough away that I can't hear what he's thinking. But he's gone now. It looks like he's got on a plane. We think he's headed back to Forks to start over. I could hear Alice filing and Jasper behind me, her quick words blurring together into a humming noise. I know, Alice saw that he got away. You won't have to worry, though. He won't find anything to lead him to you. You just have to stay there and wait till we find him again. I'll be fine. Is Esme with Charlie? Yes. The female has been in town. She went to the house, but while Charlie was at work, she hasn't gone near him, so don't be afraid. He's safe, with Esme and Rosalie watching.
For some reason.
What is she doing? Probably trying to pick up the trail, Bella.
Yeah.
She's been all through the town during the night. Rosalie traced her down through the airport, all the roads around the town, and the school. She's digging, Bella, but there's nothing there for her to find. And you're sure Charlie's safe? Yes. Esme won't let him out of her sight, and we'll be there soon. If the tracker gets anywhere near Forks, we'll have him.
There's nothing there for them to find except connections to things that Bella might care about.
I miss you, I whispered. I know, Bella. That's literally what it says. I know, Bella. Believe me, I know. It's like you've taken half myself away with you. Come and get it then, I challenged. Shut the fuck up, Bella.
I hate them, they're so gross.
Soon, as soon as I possibly can, I will make you safe. His voice was hard. So hard.
I fuck Anastasia.
I love you, I reminded him. Could you believe that? Despite everything I've put you through, I love you too. Yes, I can, actually. Then I'll come for you soon. I'll be waiting.
What if she couldn't? Would he just leave her there?
No, actually, Edward, I think I've changed my mind.
He's like, alright, fine,
It's just,
Arizona then,
it's
bye.
too much for me. Bye. As soon as the phone went dead, the cloud of depression began to creep over me again. I turned to give the phone back to Alice and found her and Jasper bent over the table, where Alice was sketching on a piece of hotel stationery. I leaned on the back of the couch, looking over her shoulder. She drew a room, long, rectangular, with a thinner, square section at the back. The wooden planks that made up the floor stretched lengthwise across the room. Down the walls were lines denoting the breaks in the mirrors, and then, wrapping around the walls waist high, a long band. The band Alice said was gold. It's a ballet studio, I said, recognizing the shapes. They looked at me surprised. Do you know this room? Jasper's voice sounded calm, but there was an undercurrent of something that I couldn't identify. Alice bent her head to her work, her hand flying across the page now, the shape of an emergency exit taking shape against the black wall. The stereo and the TV on a low table by the front right corner. It looks like a place I used to go for dance lessons when I was like 8 or 9. It was shaped just the same. I touched the page where the square section jutted out, narrowing the back part of the room. That's where the bathrooms were. The doors were through the other dance floor, but the stereo was here. I pointed to the left corner. It was older and there wasn't a TV. There was a window in the waiting room. You would see the room from this perspective if you looked through it. Alice and Jasper were staring at me. Are you sure it's the same room? Jasper asked, still calm.
I mean,
No.
I'm pretty sure, but you can doubt me if you want.
No, not at all. I suppose most dance studios would look the same. The mirrors, the bar. I traced my finger along the ballet bar to set against the mirrors. It's just that this shape looks really familiar. I touched the door set in exactly the same place as the one I remembered. Would you have any reason to go there now? Alice asked, breaking my reverie. No, I haven't been there in almost 10 years. I was a terrible dancer. They always put me in the back for recitals, I admitted. So there's no way that it could be connected with you? Alice asked intently. No, I don't even think the same person owns it. I'm sure it's just another dance studio somewhere. Where was the studio that you went to? Jasper asked in a casual voice. It was just around the corner of my mom's house. I used to walk there after school, I said, my voice trailing off. So it is here in Phoenix, then. His voice was casual. Yes, 58th Street and Cactus. We all sat in silence, staring at the drawing. Alice, is the phone safe? Yes, she assured. The number would just trace back to Washington. Then can I use it to call my mom, I asked. I thought she was in Florida. She is, but she's coming home soon, and she can't come back to that house while... My voice trembled. I was thinking about something Edward had said about the red-haired female at Charlie's house. At the school where my records would be. How would you reach her? They don't have a permanent number except at the house. She's supposed to check her messages regularly.
The fact that Bella puts this together faster than the super genius vampires.
Yeah.
It's pretty rough.
Jasper, what do you think? Alice asked. He thought about it. I don't think there's any way it could hurt. Be sure you don't say where you are, though, of course. I reached eagerly for the phone and dialed the familiar number. It rang 4 times, and then I heard my mom's breezy voice telling me to leave a message. Mom, I said after the beep, it's me. Listen, I need you to do something. It's important. As soon as you get this message, call me at this number. Alice was already at my side, writing the number for me at the bottom of the picture, and I read it to her carefully. Please don't go anywhere until you've talked to me. Don't worry, I'm okay. But I have to talk to you right away, no matter how late you get this call, alright? I love you, Mom. Bye. I closed my eyes and prayed with all my might that no unforeseen change of plans would bring her home before she got my message. I settled into the sofa, nibbling on a plate of leftover fruit, anticipating a long evening. I thought about calling Charlie, but I wasn't sure if I should be home by now or not. I concentrated on the news, watching out for stories about Florida, or about spring training, strikes of hurricanes or terrorist attacks, anything that might send them home early. Immortality must grant endless patience. Neither Jasper nor Alice seemed to feel the need to do anything for her at all. For a while, Alice sketched the vague outline of the dark room from her vision, as much as she could see in the light from the TV. But when she was done, she simply sat, looking at the blank walls with her timeless eyes. Jasper, too, seemed to have no urge to pace, or peek through the curtains, or run screaming out the door the way that I had felt. I must have fallen asleep on the couch, waiting for the phone to ring again.
The difference between being an adult and a child.
The touch of Alice's cold hands woke me briefly as she carried me to bed, but I was unconscious again before my head hit the pillow. And that is the end of chapter 20.